Today we cover one of the most interesting games in chess history, a game from 1933 between geniuses Albert Einstein, the father of modern physics, truly one of the greatest scientists of all time, and Robert J. Oppenheimer, a brilliant physicist in his own right who headed up the Manhattan Project which developed the first atomic bomb. Yes, these guys did play chess against each other. But first, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. It helps me, this channel, and our growing chess community here at MTX Chess. So, it's 1933 at Princeton, and two of the world's greatest minds are convening over a chessboard. It's Einstein with the white pieces, and he opens us up with e4. After e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, we have the Ruy Lopez on the board. I'm not the first person to notice that Albert Einstein, who is perhaps the world's greatest theoretical physicist, chooses to play what is chess's most theoretical opening, the Ruy Lopez. And it's clear from how the game plays out over the next couple moves that both Oppenheimer and Einstein had at least a baseline understanding of the chess theory at the time. For instance, the next move that Oppenheimer plays is a6, Morphy's defense. After bishop a4, b5, bishop b3, knight f6 from Oppenheimer, castle kingside from Einstein. This is a very common idea in the Ruy Lopez. The idea is that this pawn is weak, and so white's fine if black captures this pawn because white's going to have plenty of counterplay with a rook along the e file. Oppenheimer goes for the pawn. After knight takes e4, we get rook e1 from Einstein, and then Oppenheimer shoring up that weak knight with d5. Einstein plays a4, and after b4, d3. And now the idea with d3 is to basically push this knight out the square so that the rook and the knight can team up on the weak e5 square and eventually win that pawn. So after knight c5, we get knight takes e5 and knight e7. So why did Oppenheimer play knight e7 in this position? Well, Einstein's making some pretty severe threats here. So obviously this rook is threatening check, and especially a discovered check if the knight were to come to a square like c6, for instance. Let's say white had two moves in a row as their move. Knight coming to c6 to take the knight would be discovered check with the rook, but also the knight would put a ton of pressure on any squares that the queen would be able to come to, and it would be absolutely winning for white. So Oppenheimer seeing this, elects to play knight e7. Einstein continues with the attack with queen f3, and here Oppenheimer really makes his first big mistake of the game, and that is he plays f6. What's wrong with f6? Isn't it nice that black gets to push this knight off this e5 square? The problem with f6 is that the queen is going to come to h5, and you just really do not want to open up this deadly diagonal so early in the game, especially when your pieces are underdeveloped. In reality, a better move for Oppenheimer would have been something like getting one of his bishops involved or preparing his king to castle. Einstein punishes this f6 move with queen h5 check, and there's really nothing Oppenheimer can do here. He can't escape to this square because of the knight. He can't block check with this knight because the rook and knight have the really fantastic tactic, discovered check tactic we talked about earlier. And so really the only option for Oppenheimer here is to play g6, which is what he did play. The problem with g6 is that the queen pins the h-pawn to the rook. And so even though g6 looks like a good defensive move, the g6 pawn is really hanging in this position. And that is why Einstein took it. Knight takes g6. After h takes g6, Einstein was happy to pick up the extra material. And here Oppenheimer plays knight takes b3, c takes b3. Better moves for Oppenheimer here would have been something like developing the bishop, or moving the king to this f7 square to cover this pawn which is hanging. Really, exchanging a piece when you're not fully developed is probably not the best bet for you. So Oppenheimer continuing with the mistakes. So after knight takes b3, c takes b3, queen d6 from Oppenheimer. Pretty clear that what he was trying to do was basically cover this f6 pawn, which is super weak. But after bishop h6, we've got the black bishop pinned by the queen, and Einstein kind of loading up on the bishop. It's clear that Einstein has some basic tactical understanding. Here, Oppenheimer kind of understood the gravity of the situation and decided that it was time to get out of dodge. And so he played king d7, basically starting the king run. After bishop takes f8, we get bishop b7, trying to develop some pieces finally. After queen g7, rook e8. And you can see that Einstein's really piling up on this e7 knight. And so the point of rook e8 is to defend this weak e7 square. After knight d2, Einstein just continuing this development. We get c5, rook ad1, and a5. And here Einstein played the really great move, knight to c4. And sometimes if you've seen this game before, or if you see it after, some people refer to this game between Oppenheimer and Einstein as the E equals knight c4 game. I think that's kind of a nod to E equals mc squared, which is Einstein's equation we all know of. I think that's a bit of a stretch for me, but this is a good move nonetheless. The idea being that this black queen is really tied down in the defense of this weak e7 square. White just has so many attackers on this e7 square. If the black queen moves off the square, it's really going to be tough for black. And why can't black just take this knight? And that's because the d file opens up, and Einstein's going to have a great pin on pinning the queen to the king. So Einstein really showing his understanding of tactics And here, unfortunately, Oppenheimer had no choice but to take on c4. So after d takes c4, d takes c4, now Einstein just with this crushing pin on the black queen. We get queen takes d1, rook takes d1. And the game's over for Oppenheimer. He probably could have resigned here, but he played king c8. And then after bishop e7, it was in this position on move 24 that Oppenheimer resigned the game. So pretty incredible that we even have a game between Einstein and Oppenheimer. And this just goes to show you that even if you're a genius, doesn't necessarily mean that you are good at chess. So even though Einstein clearly had a bit of a tactical understanding. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this game as interesting as I do. I would love to hear in the comments if you think Einstein is the greatest scientist of all time. I know there's a lot of people who are like vehement Isaac Newton fans, and so they'll defend Isaac Newton to the death. But I'd love to hear who you think the best scientist of all time is, and if you think being a great scientist or being a scientific or musical genius automatically makes you a good chess player. So new content coming every week. I hope you like and subscribe and keep watching the videos we have here at this channel. See you next time.